Hey everyone, and welcome to Chef AJ Live. I'm your host, Chef AJ, and this is where I introduce you to amazing people like you who are doing great things in the world that I think you should know about. Before I introduce today's guest, I want to thank Linda Middlesworth, who is vegan royalty up here, for this really cool shirt. It's not only my favorite color, but I love what it says. So thank you so much, Linda. So today's guest has been on the show before. Today, he's going to be talking about habits for longevity that can help you live to 150. Now, I don't know if that's possible, but we'll find out. And coincidentally, he's talking about longevity and his last name is Young. Please welcome back Mike Young. It's nice to see you again.
Hey, nice to see you, Chef AJ.
Hey, do you think the fact that your last name's Young is why you're so interested in this topic?
Actually, it has nothing to do with that, but yeah, people ask me if I've kind of linked that together, and I haven't. So, but it is fitting, and I think it's kind of cool, actually.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it works out perfectly. It's sort of like, like when I knew this guy, his last name literally was Tooth, and he became a dentist. What can I tell you?
Well, I knew a dentist name was Sugar. Last name was Sugar, if you can believe that.
That is hilarious. That is hilarious. So you tell us about why you're so interested in longevity, because I am too. I'm going to actually be doing a longevity week next month on Chef AJ Live, but tell us what you know
Awesome.
about it.
Okay, well, for me, it goes way back to even when before I was vegan and how I became vegan, I'd say. When I was growing up, I just did not like animal products. I couldn't understand why people would eat meat when you could choose to eat something else, because it was really gross to me. I would look at what was on the plate my parents would serve me. It would be like animal muscle, blood, veins. It would just, to me, it looked so gross. And I made a lot of choices along those lines. Turns out, I'm 52 now. I was born in 1970. As we have gained knowledge over time, the choices I was making were probably right all along. I just had no one backing me up. I had no support. And of course, I'm always a very curious person. I'm a thinker. Like a lot of people say, like, well, why do you get into like the wellness area? Usually it's one of two reasons. Either you've had a health crisis or you're a very deep thinker. And for me, it's deep thinking. So, I've always watched people as they get older, relatives, friends. I'm in the age range now, over 50, where I'm watching everyone get sick and die. And it's very, very depressing if I was to just kind of think on that. But the more I've thought about it over the decades, I've come to the realization that most of the things that happen to people are just due to things that we are taught in society, certain mindsets, not intentional teachings necessarily, because I don't think anyone would teach someone wrong if they knew better. But I think we're in an interesting time now where we've got all the information available through the internet, and most people still don't use the internet for what the primary most beneficial purpose is, which is to really enhance and really enrich and make better, more fun our lives. Not just in the moment fun, but ongoing fun. You know what I'm saying? And that's what longevity and wellness is to me. So that's really what I'm focused on. That's the kind of life I want to have. And so my goal is 150. I know you said you're not sure if it's possible. I think a lot of people, that's the first reaction I get. Is that really possible? Well, I don't think others before us have really set that as a goal, and I don't think all the information's been out there. And I know you do an amazing job of teaching people about the food component. And actually, I've found that the food component, I believe, is like, the 80-20 principle. 80% of longevity is the food. The other 20% is still very important. But if you don't get the food right, you're gonna have a hard time getting there.
Yeah. Are you familiar with the blue zones?
Absolutely. Our organization, aPlantBasedDiet.org, is Blue Zone recognized. We went through the process. So I actually have a chapter in my book, Live to 150, which is free, by the way. Just go to liveto150.org. There's a chapter in there about the blue zones. And I love the blue zones because it's a study, right, on longevity and analyzing different areas around the globe that have had more centenarians than other places, more people that have lived to over 100 years old, and wondered why. It's kind of the same idea. I've done that, except I've wondered it to everyone I know everywhere, and I'd say the blue zones give very good lessons, but unfortunately, I feel like the blue zones have almost disappeared. I feel like those areas are not what they used to be. I feel like society in general, the goal of most people unconsciously is to live like Americans. eat like Americans. These people from these areas of the globe, these 5 areas of the blue zones, over time, as those people become Americanized, they lose that longevity. I'm sure you're aware of that. So
Yeah.
So anyway, I feel like we're in a new time frame, like I said, because in the past, information didn't travel well. So you could find those isolated areas around the globe where everybody had really good habits and they really did it. But now they see, oh, the Americans are doing this. I see, I want that kind of lifestyle. It looks fun to me. And as we know, most of the fun stuff that people think is fun is really detrimental to your health. And so my job, I guess, is to kind of make it fun, make it enjoyable. And I think that here's my role. Like what really got me to write this book, which is a video book, by the way, you can watch it on YouTube. It's just a YouTube playlist and it'll have 150 chapters. It has 131 right now. So I'm almost done, 19 more chapters to go. But by the time you start reading it and finish it, I'll already have the book done. It's just going to be that long. There's so much information to cover. I'm like the canary in the coal mine. That's the thing I've realized over time. But I said I made the right decisions and then didn't realize it. The reason why I made the right decisions growing up and into my, older years, I guess I don't consider myself older yet. Even though I'm 52, I have 98 more years to go, according to the goal. So I don't consider myself older yet. But I've listened to my body. I've been very in touch with the feelings of my body. So that's what my book is based on. Most of it's based on my own personal experience. Because I've made the right choices from early on. I didn't know why, but when I go back and analyze it, it's because my body was telling me something and I chose to listen to that rather than to others. And that has served me very well over the years.
That's fantastic. Where do you think this knowledge came from?
Well, it's just a self-awareness. I think that's a lot of what I mentioned in the book is that this is a psychological issue for many people. Okay, I'd say that, it's a societal thing. As I mentioned, people want to live the American dream. They want to eat the standard American diet. And so there's a herd mentality there. You know what I'm saying? So in order for me to be able to do this, I've had to be able to go against the grain, and go against society on a number of levels, as I'm sure you're aware, doing the work that you're doing. When you get the people within the circle and, like minds, kindred spirits, it's all great, right? And I love to hang out with those people. And that's actually a chapter in the book too, is to the 5 people you hang around with the most, how important that really, really is. Because you've got to cultivate the mindset. You've got to have an open mind and you've got to not just accept things because everyone else is accepting them or has accepted them. So that's a very important component.
When did you first hear about a plant-based diet and how long ago did you adopt one?
Well, growing up, I was vegetarian as long as I can think back, as long as I can remember. It's almost whenever I was choosing my food, I was always vegetarian. And it wasn't until 2014 that I switched over to, being fully plant-based. And at that time in 2014, that's when the internet was really starting to build up. So I was getting some sources of information that I wouldn't get through the main media, the mass media, because we all know that I think at this point it's pretty obvious who runs the mass media. It's the larger corporations and things, and they have their own agenda. It's usually profits, unfortunately. It's not usually anything else. So when I started absorbing more information from independent sources such as yourself, AJ, then it became clear to me very quickly. And when I look back at how I analyzed friends and relatives, how they got older, they got ill, and I said, well, why are they getting ill? If they died, what did they die from? Was that preventable? You look back and you say, wow, there is an absolute direct correlation there. It's just, for whatever reason, we haven't reached that level of consciousness as a society where we recognize this and it's important. And again, I go back to having fun, because nobody who's sick is having fun. Nobody who's on a downward spiral to their death is having fun. And unfortunately, I'd say that really starts to happen after you pass the 50 line, right? That's when I see people just get worse and worse every single year. And I guess one of the things I'm trying to convey in the book is that that is a choice. That does not have to happen, and you can live a great life all the way to the end. That's my my premise of the book, because a lot of people who will react initially and say, "Well, Mike, 150, man, I've lived 20 some odd years, and I really have a hard time. I've had a hard time with life. I don't think I want to live that long." You know, and that's why I'm saying it's a mindset. It's a psychological issue. You really have to, develop your goals. Like I mentioned, there's a chapter on that. Determine your life purpose. That's also a Blue Zones thing. And like I said, I love the Blue Zones. I really do. My book is a lot more strict than the Blue Zones. I will tell you that.
Well, I don't mean to interrupt, but Dr. Furman who's been on my show many times, including just this Sunday, said that in his opinion, the Blue Zone diet is just not good enough.
Correct. I would agree. I think it's a stepping stone, just like, let's go back and even a further stepping stone before that, like plant-based faux meats. I mean, they're great that they're there, but that's just a stepping stone, just a transition, right? It's just the collectiveness, the collective mind of society has a long way to go. So I'm glad that we're moving in that direction, but yeah, we have a lot further to go. And that's why I wanted to write this book. And like I said, 150 chapters. There's a lot of information. There's a lot of nuances. And I would say that I really do believe anyone should be able to double their lifespan from 75 to 150. Now, exactly how long you live, that's got to be a personal goal, personal choice of yours. But I do believe it relates directly to how many of these components of living to 150 you are willing to adopt into your lifestyle, because there are so many things. But again, most of it's the food. And I say, AJ, you are doing a wonderful job conveying how to eat to people, because that is just so critical.
Yep. Well, and just in case somebody's stumbling upon this as their first introduction to either of us, how should we eat?
All right, that's chapter 42. All right. Now, I would say it's fairly complicated, but let me go over some of the basic things, which I'm sure you already know, AJ. Of course, we're talking fully plant-based, no animal products. Our organization, I run a nonprofit called aPlantBasedDiet.org. We have a great website full of resources. You want to look at it. We are not just plant-based, but we are a fully vegan organization. I'm talking about something where we have to move the collective consciousness of society forward. And if we're trying to live in harmony and peace in an enjoyable life for over 100 years for everybody, there's no sense in harming animals. So fully plant-based. Then, of course, I know you're very big on process, right? Or not process, eliminating processed foods. So are we. Processed foods are, the closer you get to that whole plant, the better. And ideally, we even talk a lot about raw foods. I think that, raw eating should be a large component, but I know that everyone loves their prepared foods, right? I mean, everyone has grown up on these foods. And like I said, it's a psychological thing. So a lot of people can't just abandon all of that and just start eating raw produce. It's just not going to happen. So there is a huge need and a space, even within this living to 150, where you just need to prepare your food, cook your food, and do it right. And in terms of how to do that, of course, we don't want to add any sugar, oil, or salt. We definitely know that oil is the biggest junk food there is out there. There's none bigger than that. People are flabbergasted a lot of times when I say that oil is the worst junk food you could possibly eat, okay, for so many reasons. Of course, processed sugar has no nutrition left in it, destroys the gut. And adding salt to something is not natural, right? It's crushed rocks. There is no way your body's going to be okay with eating rocks, because we're talking about eating plants. And of course, I'm sure you know, AJ, that almost all plants have sodium in them. It's just that the sodium that's in those plants is not crushed rocks. It's a different form, and your body is designed to take in that form. So those are some big components as well. And then we can go further into it as well. Like, you got to have low caloric density. As you know you have your chart, Chef AJ, which is awesome. You also need to have a low percentage of calories from fat. So you cannot put too many nuts, seeds, and avocados in there. Even the fruit durian is high in fat. You've got to just be very mindful of that. I'd say that high fat foods and foods with high sodium are some of the biggest enemies of living long. I mean, because in almost all cases, right, the added sodium is crushed rocks. And in almost all cases, the high fat foods are either they're loaded with processed, like blended up nuts or seeds or oils. And of course, we all know that on a cellular level, when you eat too high of a percentage of calories from fat, that's what causes type 2 diabetes. It changes the expression internally of your body, and it is not good. And we're raised to crave these things, right? They're comfort foods, and unfortunately, you can't have everything.
Yeah.
you got to make your choice. And for me, my choice is, like I said, I want to have fun. I want to enjoy life as long as I possibly can, because I truly believe that the world is going to get better. The world is becoming closer. The world is becoming more open. The world is becoming more together as time goes on. You just look back in history, a few decades to see the mistakes that we made that we've already corrected. It's only going to keep getting better. So why wouldn't you want to live longer? So that's my thought on it. And then there's more things to the food as well. Of course, you've got to, when you talk about whole plants, you got to have fiber in there, right? I talk about juice as a role to this, and juice can be used more of a cleansing type of a temporary thing, but for the most part, you want to eat food with fiber in it, right? People don't get enough fiber. They are so deficient in fiber, it's crazy. And it just destroys everyone's gut health. It throws everything out of balance, right? I mean, it affects your mental health when your gut health isn't right. There are so many things that we're only now just learning that I'm sure we will understand as a society as time goes on, but we're just not there yet.
You mentioned raw food. I don't think that was one of the things in the blue zones. Did they necessarily eat more raw food than cooked food?
No, not necessarily. No. And we got to remember how the blue zones developed, right? The blue zones developed because these were isolated pockets during a time when communications were very difficult. So they just did what they could do based on their, what they had available. Now, if, let's say, for instance, we are involved as an organization in some intentional communities in Ecuador in the Amazon rainforest, where they are private communities, and you have to apply to get in, and it's mostly raw, vegan, organic, fruitarian, not exclusively, but mostly. Now, let's give it a couple decades, and let's see if that turns into a blue zone, because those areas are made up of people that have connected through the internet, which wasn't available in the past. And they are all concerned about their health. They do eat some cooked foods, but they're mostly, like I said, organic, raw, vegan, fruitarians. So let's see how that works out. Only time will tell.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. Here's a comment from a live viewer named Elizabeth. She says, I love you, Chef AJ. Thank you for what you do. I'm trying to convert to whole food plant-based, but I have a hubby that is a meat and potatoes guy. Sigh. I'll keep trying and watching you. What advice do you give to people like that are in a household where one is maybe not ready to support the other or interested in making the change?
Wow, it's very difficult. I have a chapter on family, so it would fall into that category. And, I'd say that for the most part, family, I love family, I think everyone does, but unfortunately, in a lot of ways, the family will impede progress. And sometimes you are in a very difficult situation, because as we all learn about these wellness habits, longevity habits, the food, it's you have to have people that have open minds, and I have a chapter on that too, that are willing to learn and grow. So as long as you can approach it from that angle, and most of the beginning of my book is all on these topics, because these are the biggest barriers that there are out there. It's not like we don't know, because I think we do know most of what we need to do, but if we're all trying to work together and we have a family unit, that can create tremendous amounts of friction. So I would say that's how we want to approach it, as keeping an open mind, and you have to approach it that way with people. Sometimes you have to work very, very slowly. I'd say it's a spectrum of, all right, well, if we all start working on this, if we all want to grow together, we all want to improve because we all want to have fun. We all want to be around together. We're a family, right? We want to be around together for as long as we can. See the children grow up, the grandchildren grow up, maybe the great-grandchildren grow up. Actually, I have 5 grandkids myself. So if we want to do that, we have to have a plan, right? And goals. And that's why I have a chapter on goals and life purpose. All this kind of goes together. Now, if you have someone who just doesn't care about any of that, like all those things I just mentioned, I would hope they'd care about at least one of them, but they may care about none of them. Truly, I don't know what to do, because a lot of times family can be the biggest impediment to making progress in this area, because people don't want to rock the boat for obvious reasons. If the people that we're dealing with are very just steadfast and not changeable, and don't have made it clear. And sometimes, you know, the worst case scenario is you have to make a choice. Do I want to continue with this person or not? I would hope that everyone would value the relationship and the family as the highest priority. But, you know, if I've been around many people, and I've seen certain families where no one cares about their health at all. I'm sure that people out there listening can say, oh yeah, I've met people like that, or maybe that's in my family. And those are the toughest situations of all, because everyone has freedom, right? Everyone can do and should be able to do what they want to do. Unfortunately, and I have a chapter in the book on this, I do believe that right now in society, you know, self-abuse of this form is legal. When I say self-abuse, I mean, we know enough, we know better at this point in time how we should behave in terms of our habits and the food, especially, that we should be eating, right? We know. I mean, everyone knows, everyone's accepting of at least some plant-based stuff eating in their diet. So we all know, but the reality is people don't recognize it for what it is. It's almost like self-destructive behavior, and it's legal. So it's a very difficult time we live in. And again, this is one of the reasons why it motivated me to get this book out there, because I need to get it in front of enough people so that they understand, look, all I really care about is enjoying life, having fun. You know, I mean, it's like we know better. When you know better, you do better. That's actually a chapter in my book. That's Maya Angelou, I do believe, who said that. And that's one chapter in my book, because that's an important concept on this. And you got to kind of reach people's heart, right? And say, well, yeah, that really connects with me. You know, my spouse is good. You know, my spouse, when my spouse knows better, he or she wants to do better, right? And hopefully that can mean something, you know, and just the idea of continuous learning, right? I would hope that we all want to keep learning, even though we're out of traditional school. I've been out for so many decades now, but the internet is so awesome because you can learn, right? You can learn all this information, but also what I see is people who use the internet to just waste tremendous amounts of time. That's what I see. I see way too much of that. I know that in this group that's watching the show, those people aren't there in this audience, but I think most of society is still wasting their time on the internet. Like, you know, that's the way it is.
I can't believe you have 5 grandchildren. I didn't even know you had regular children.
Yep. Oh yeah, I had it early. Yes. So I'm 52, you know, so, you know.
That's incredible. You know, you mentioned finding your purpose. I remember I had Dan Buettner on the show, and he talked about something called the Ikigai. That was I guess that was maybe a Japanese word for basically that. But how does one find their purpose?
Yeah, well, it can be tough. I know that the Blue Zones actually have some of the awesome things that they do have is they have usually in communities that they're serving, because Southwest Florida, we do a lot of work in Southwest Florida. They are a Blue Zone area now and have been for a few years. And they actually have classes available for the community specifically for that. You know, so you can attend a class if you're down in Southwest Florida, like Collier County, which is around the Naples area, which is where they are, and just go. I don't think there's even a cost. And that is awesome. There's also resources you can find online, you know, that I do recommend. One of the themes of my book is to use the internet for all the resources. Like we're on YouTube right now, right on your YouTube channel. There's so much information. You just go on there, you type in what you're looking for, because as I mentioned, so much of this is psychological. It's like working on your own psychology. And there are so many videos on the internet about mastering your psychology, mastering your thoughts, because that is, if you cannot master your thoughts and figure out what's going in here, what's processing in your brain all day long, and you're not in the plant-based space, you're not in the wellness space, you haven't done this, you're probably not going to be successful. You know, and that's again why I mentioned so much of this early in the book. And yes, purpose and goals are early in the book. So if you live near a Blue Zone area, by all means, take their class or find their stuff online too. I'm sure you can find your stuff online.
Nice. Let's see if there's any questions. So when you say your book is free, it's on YouTube, correct?
Yes, when you type in the URL, liveto150.org. When you do that from any browser, it will just take you directly to the playlist. So right now there's like over 130 videos in order. So you can start playing them in order. You can skip around if you want, and they all have the same background. With me, you'll recognize it instantly because it's got the same background, and I'm wearing the same shirt in all the videos. And I've recorded them over the last year, a little over a year. I started working on this project last summer. I was brainstorming about it before that, trying to figure out how to communicate this to everybody. And as I thought about it more and more, I'm like, well, it's going to be long. And some of these chapters are, 4 or 5 minutes long. Some of them are a half hour long. It depends on the topic that we're discussing. Like the food, chapter 42, that is the most important chapter. So if anybody wants to know about the food, just go to chapter 42. I've already given you a good summary of it, but you can review it over and over again because that's 80% of longevity. And the more you dial that down, and I'm not a chef, right? AJ, I'm not like you. I'm talking about it specifically from a longevity standpoint, based on my own personal experience. And believe me, I react to everything. If I'm eating too much fat as a percentage of calories, my body tells me. If I'm eating any added sodium, and I do this over a period of time, my body tells me. Like, I cannot eat wrong. Like, that's how in tune I am with my body. I'm pretty sure that most people could get that way as well. But I think that most people are so out of tune, not necessarily this audience. I'm talking about society in general. Most people are out of tune, so they can't recognize that. And I think you, AJ, hopefully you would agree with this, that the body is a self-healing machine. I believe that. The body, when you give it the right conditions, it will heal itself. It always wants to heal. It's always seeking balance, right? It's always seeking health. The problem is that we just don't get out of our own way most of the time. We don't pay attention to the check engine light that goes on. And that's when illness sets in, okay? And I'm talking about this from a food standpoint, right? Because I'm not a doctor. I'm not in the medical system. I'm talking about this from a nutrition standpoint. But it's so true. I've been around over 50 years, and I've seen it my entire time, right? Because I'm just that in tune with what's going on. And when I start to feel bad, I'm not having fun anymore. I'm not enjoying life anymore. So I'm like, okay, what do I have to do?
Yep.
So that's what it comes in.
Thank you. We have a question from a live viewer named Krister. She says, Mike, when you do this through a nonprofit organization, how do you utilize any profit proceeds donations? Does most of your proceeds benefit the communities where you hold the Vegfests?
I'd say yes, because we're a worldwide organization. And that's why I have this book here, and it's free. However, we are also a local organization in the areas where we have live events. And those areas are Southwest Florida, which is Lee, Collier, Charlotte County, Sarasota County. That's where most of our audience is. So we have local groups in those areas. If you go to our website, aPlantBasedDiet.org, you can find local groups that we maintain. These groups have thousands of people in them. We have 2 levels of groups at the local level. We have a vegan group because we're a vegan organization. So anytime someone's willing to think about giving up animal products, they can get into our local group and talk about local things. So we have, our biggest areas are Southwest Florida, Ocala, Gainesville in Florida, Raleigh, North Carolina, and the Washington, D.C. area. In those, if anybody out there is listening in those areas, get on our website, go look at the local groups and join. And we have, like I said, 2 levels. Vegan is one. Those are our biggest groups because that's going to take in, it's going to be a catch-all for more people, right? Most people out there who are going to get involved with us are just willing to give up animal products or talk about just eating plants. Now, the next level, the high level group is the lifestyle group. So we have a lifestyle group in each area locally. And those areas are really only talking about health optimization things in general and happening locally. So those groups are probably maybe like a third of the size of the vegan groups. So we have a lot of effort, to manage and maintain these groups, and of course to produce the events, because we have Vegfest. AJ, like, you've been to our Savannah Vegfest. So Savannah's a newer area for us, but it's between DC and Florida. So we're on the road. We're taking our events trailer up and down the road, and they're in public places. That's the other thing I want everyone to know. We, as an organization, recognize, just as I mentioned in the book, that this is a psychological, it's a societal issue, right? It's a general consciousness level of society. Right now, society is at a very low level of consciousness in general. However, we do believe that over time, it's going to increase, and we're here to try to foster that. So one of the vehicles that we do, in addition to our local social media groups where we can get people to join, because there's no cost to join, everyone can join. Everyone can also go to our Vegfest because there's no admission cost, and they're generally held in public places. Like AJ, when you did the Savannah Vegfest, you were in Forsyth Park in the middle of downtown Savannah with people walking by all over the place. There were some amazing conversations. People were just stopping by, watching you on the big screen, because we bring this big video wall out to the middle of the park so you can see it in the middle of the day. And sometimes we have doctors with their PowerPoints as well. It's just a really cool experience, and we're just trying to we're trying to meet everyone where they are, I suppose, right? Meet everyone where they are and just foster that knowledge, and just get them on that path, get them moving forward. Because even for me, it's been a progression over the years. And I'd say this book, Live to 150, is like way up here. It's like the ultimate, right? Like, if you're going to go all out for everything, that's why I put the book out there, because we need something to strive for. And that's it.
Nice. What was your most recent Vegfest that you produced?
Last one, the last one we did solely by ourselves was Savannah Vegfest, and then there was Wake Forest in North Carolina, which is just north of Raleigh, North Carolina. It's a suburb. That was the most recent one that we did. That was early April. We also work with Gwen Whitaker on Fairfax Vegfest after that. That's their event, but we helped them out. So the one that we did was Wake Forest Vegfest, and our event season is from October through April, and we go up and down 95 here on the East Coast of the United States, and they're fully outdoor events. I want to stress that too. Fully outdoor events in public places where there's all kinds of people walking by. Okay, that's how I truly feel there's nothing more important than this. I mean, I see society, right? And most people really don't live this lifestyle at all, but we can maybe reach out and capture their attention and gain their interest somehow with these events, all the way up to the book that I have now, where they can hopefully double their lifespan and just enjoy life the whole time, rather than being sick for the last 10 or 20 years. I truly believe all this, and I am so hopeful for the future, and that's what keeps us going.
Great, thanks. One of the live viewers says, what degree, training, or certification do you have necessary in order to give people nutritional advice?
Well, for me, it is solely based on my experience. I completely work outside of the system. We unfortunately live in a time where even if someone is to get, let's say, become a registered dietitian or something, you are forced to learn things that I know are incorrect. We've had people at our events recently who have talked about having to lie on their exam to get their doctorate, because they know the stuff isn't true. Okay, but they have to say it is in order to get their degree. So I go back to, it's my own personal experience. I am 52 years old. I have never been on any kind of maintenance medications. The goal is to never be on any kind of maintenance pharmaceuticals, is what I'm talking about, okay? And we are really out there to push the envelope, as I was saying. I don't want to work within the system. I'd rather get with like minds, like, for instance, Ecuador. For instance, we're doing some more things in Florida too, which we haven't even really announced yet, in Southern Florida, where we are gathering with like minds. And as I said, I'm talking about like the next level blue zone that hasn't even, it's going to require 10, 20 years. So people look back and say, oh yeah, okay. Now I see what they were doing. So that's where we focus our energies, is on that, on what's next.
Great. There's a question. Do you advocate using avocado oil? And I typed in the chat, I don't recommend any oil unless you're a car. And then I recommend motor oil.
Yeah, that's I would agree with that. Oil is great to lubricate internal combustion engines. We all know that we would never pour that down the drain in our house, right? I talk about this in the book. Well, if you would never pour that down the drain in your house, why would you ever put that into your body? There's no way it's going to be beneficial for you. And as I said, it's the ultimate junk food. I cannot think of any junk food, because usually a vegan junk food or animal product junk food has some oil in it. Okay. But if you're going to drink straight oil, it's all bad. I mean, there's some, like you talk about avocado, it's got some trace of nutritional value of the avocado, but almost all that has been removed, truly. I mean, there's no way that you're going to you just eat the avocado, just eat a little bit too. Don't eat a whole avocado, because then you're going to get too high of a percentage of calories from fat. And we don't want that.
Right. Thank you. Question, Mike, are you vegan for ethical or health reasons? I think people are often for more than one reason, sometimes up to 3 reasons.
Yeah. The saying, the slogan of our nonprofit is for people, animals, and our planet. And I'd say that describes me. However, because I'm an ethical vegan, and that's why I put on our website that we are a 100% vegan organization. The first thing when you go to our website, aPlantBasedDiet.org, is you see that we're a 100% vegan organization. However, I also recognize that the health component is the most complicated facet of this entire thing. And if you are going to get out there and fully optimize your health, doing everything you can and everything that we know, you are automatically going to fully optimize the ethical side and the environmental side. And actually, the only way to optimize and totally do the best thing for the environment you can is to fully optimize your health. Okay, it's automatic. Believe it or not, it's a lower level, because if you do everything you can for the environment, it still doesn't mean that you're doing everything you can for your health. But if you do everything for your health, you're automatically doing everything you can for the environment and for the animals.
Yep. Question, how do you deal with business partnerships? What do you do for unsatisfied vendors? I'm always impressed at every Vegfest, the amount of people that are selling things there. Like, I've never heard of half of them. You know what I mean? Like, when I go to these Vegfests, it's like, I didn't even know this company existed. I didn't even know this product existed.
Yeah, I'd say that I would view us as a way to help out small businesses, specifically local, although we have corporate businesses that do show up as well. And it can be tough. There's no question about it. Whenever you're starting a business, it can be challenging. So I view our events as a great resource and a great opportunity for small, struggling local businesses to market what they have, in front of a captive audience of interested people. Now, do all businesses do well? No. I, for one, have been in business my entire life. I've never had a regular job for more than 2 weeks. I'm 52 years old. Okay, I've always worked for myself before anyone even. I worked for myself back when self-employment meant unemployed to most people. Okay, because I was working from home in the 80s. No one even knew what that was. So I know that 4 out of 5 businesses fail. That's just the reality of things, right? It'll probably always be that way as far as I can see into the future, because it's extremely competitive. When you're in business, you have to reach a competitive level that you just don't have to do in most jobs working for someone else. So it's tough, and we do everything we can to assist the businesses. And some of them aren't happy, and I try to give them pointers whenever someone approaches me, and they have after our events. They'll ask me different questions, and I can give them some great feedback. I'm 52. I started working for myself, cutting grass for neighbors, before I was 10 years old in the late 1970s. Okay, that's how long I've been in business. So I understand every facet of running a business, although I do not understand large corporate organizations, because I've never been involved in those. Okay, so I can't offer advice there. But for the local businesses that that's who we're trying to help out. People who want to get in the plant-based space, people who want to get in front of these people that are interested, try to get a jump start and kickstart their business. Well, we do everything we can, but we can't. Everyone's not going to be successful. Unfortunately, I wish everyone could. But as I said, 4 out of 5 fail. We try to keep those odds smaller if we can, especially if we're helping them. But I can't give any statistics on that, just that we are willing to help, and we always do.
Great. Thank you. Well, here's the question that every guest on Chef AJ Live eventually gets from Savannah. Mike, what do you eat in a day?
What do I eat in a day? Okay. Well, I talk about this in chapter 42. I nowadays am eating, I'd say about 50% or more organic raw produce. Okay. This is truly, and when I say organic, I would rather grow it myself too, even though I don't right now, but we are in a space where we're learning that, like we're involved in these intentional communities where they're growing it themselves so that I know that it is truly chemical free. All right. The only way you know is by growing it yourself. So I try to find foods that are local farmers. I've found local farmers in different areas I talk to them and they say, yeah, my stuff is better than organic. My stuff is chemical free. And that's who I try to buy from in season, picked pick it from the plant and try to eat it as fast as you can. I mentioned this in my book. The longer the shelf life of a food, the shorter your life. So if you want a long life, this is it. You buy your chemical-free produce, you pick it, and you eat it almost immediately. So that's what I try to do. I say 50% or more of my diet is that, or at least that's the goal. I try to do it. I'm not there. We have a lot of progress to do, okay, with that in society. The rest of it, I'd say, all right, let's say we're doing 60% raw organic produce. Then I'll say 45% or 35%, so we get to 95%, is going to be, but at the traditional definition of whole food plant-based. Actually, that's my license plate, by the way. If you go to Florida, you see somebody has a license plate that says WFPB. That's been my license plate for like 5 years, okay? But that's like, to me, that's, unfortunately, I'd say that as the plant-based area has expanded, the definition of that term has become clouded. I know, AJ, you use plant exclusive, which I think is awesome. So I would kind of almost rather use that and say like 35% of my diet is plant exclusive. And I'd say, when I say plant exclusive, I mean, I want no SOS, no added sugar, oil, or salt. Okay. Low percentage of calories from fat. Cook it all below 350, because once you get to 350, you start to form acrylamides on the food. They're a known carcinogen. There's so many things, all the stuff's in the book, chapter 42, if you want to read it. That's 35% of my diet. The other 5% is for my cheat days or cheat meals, all right, which I have a chapter in the book on cheat meals. Well, it's only 5%. Your body's probably not going to know the difference, although mine still gives me a hard time. And I think eventually I may just eliminate that, but I truly don't think it's going to affect my longevity as long as I'm truly doing 95% and then a 5% cheat meal. When I say cheat meal, we're not talking animal products. I'm not eating animal products. I gave this up in 2014. So this is just vegan junk food, like that's it. And I, as I said, I react badly. My taste buds love it. Okay. They love it. But my body is like, what are you doing? I mean, it's just, and so that's my diet. That's what I eat in a day.
Sounds good. Question, when dealing with financial pressures or a food desert, what would be the best way of eating plant-based on a budget?
Well, I know a guy, Spirit Mike, down in Tampa, Florida. He spoke at one of our events. He talks about, he's an African-American living in Tampa, and he lives in one of those areas, and he grows his own food, and he teaches his neighbors how to grow their own food. Down in Tampa, you can grow all year round. Okay, keep in mind that you can't necessarily do that in all places, but that's what I would recommend. If you're living in a climate that's conducive to that, is to grow your own food. That's the number one option. Now, if you can't do that, there's of course always people, I'd say, that are willing to help out. And also let us know if it's an area that we serve. We would love to get involved in like an area, let's say you're talking about, that's a food desert. We're all about education, right? The only reason I'm putting this book out there, because it's no cost, all right, is to educate the public. Our events educate the public. And if it's not in an area, even if it's not in an area that we serve, please reach out to me. You can actually, if you go to live150.org, click on the description of the YouTube channel. My email address is right there. You can email me.
Nice. Thank you. Mona says, where is your home base? That's
Florida. Okay. And I never really got into Florida so much till 2014, actually. And over time, it's weird. I've lived in the DC area most of my growing up life. And I think back, and I have chapters in the book on this, on the winters in Maryland and seasonal affective disorder. And that's a chapter in the book, okay? The lack of sunlight in the winter months. Of course, you can't grow anything outdoors. The more I live and investigate and learn, the more I'm drawn to the tropics, because we're getting into growing your own food. And AJ, where you are now, I think you're outside of Sacramento. You're probably at the same latitude I am right now, because I'm in the DC area right now. But as that sun starts to sink closer to the equator, it already is. I can feel it. I can feel it every day, because I can feel that sun changing. I don't feel right in the winter. And not only do I need to move south, because that's where all of our events are from November through March, all of our events are in Florida. It's only the months of October and a little of November and then April that we have events further north. So almost everything we do is in Florida, most of our social media, most of our events. And then we do go to Ecuador as well. Like I said, we got projects in Ecuador. We're going to have projects in Florida as well. So for me, hopefully that answers the question.
Yeah, there are quite a few plant-based doctors in Florida. There's Dr. Sal, there's Dr. Esser, there's Dr. Sabatino.
Don't forget about vegan primary care, Dr. Scott Harrington. I cannot recommend this guy enough.
Oh, yeah, he's been on the show and he wants to come back. I didn't realize he was in Florida.
Yes, he's in the Tampa area, and I know. Yeah, he is more into this style of living. Oh, but Dr. Clapper's in Florida now too.
That's right. And Angela's mentioning Dr. Delaney too. Yeah, there's quite a few.
Dr. Delaney goes every year. She's the headliner at our Charlotte County Vegfest in downtown Punta Gorda. Dr. Delaney is awesome.
Yeah, they're all great people. Well, that's really fun. So you basically kind of do volunteer work all year round.
Yes, and that's right now. At least I don't get paid for any of the work that we do with the nonprofit. I have paid employment outside of that. Like I said, I've always been self-employed, so I have some revenue streams coming in from other enterprises that I have. And my wife also works in IT. But it may seem like, hey, you're doing this all the time, because I am. I have the flexibility, right? I mean, I'm self-employed, so whatever is most pressing business, that's what I'm focusing on. And there's always something to do, but this is like, when you talk about life purpose, my life purpose absolutely is to convey this information to people. I feel, as I mentioned, we're in a period of time where everyone has the ability to learn and to know all this and to have lives that are so much more fulfilling and happy, yet they're not doing it. And it's that gap. It's that I'm trying to bridge that gap, and we have so much work to do. But I see amazing things. Like I said, we're moving into the intentional community space. We're moving into growing your own food. And as I mentioned, I want 50% or more of my diet to be that whole plant, organic, chemical free. Pick it when it's ripe and eat it right away. That's where you get all the nutrition. There is no better way. And I'm talking about growing outdoors. That's another thing I want to stress. I have several chapters on different aspects of the sun. There is nothing more powerful than the sun. The sun will destroy you, right? I mean, if you look at the sun for more than a few seconds, you'll go blind. We talk about this in the book. But that energy can be harvested by the plants. The plants harness that energy, that power, and they process it and they give it to us in the way that we're designed for. They show it in color, right? We see it, it's in color, we pick it, and we eat it. And the more vibrant and vivid that color is, the more of that power is being transmitted to us. And I do believe that's how humans have been designed to thrive. If you look back, Thomas Wade Jackson's a friend of mine. He's in Florida as well. I don't know if you know, he had the movie Prayer for Compassion, A Prayer for Compassion. You can look it up online. He talked about why or why not are the world's religions vegan? And it's an awesome movie. And if you go back to like Christianity, well, the Garden of Eden. I mean, what do you think that was? Those were plants growing in the sun, picking stuff when it's ripe and eating it. That was the way humans were designed to thrive. You know, not to say he's not a Christian movie. He talks about all religions, but I'm just giving one example, because almost every religion, if you really get down into it, or every thought pattern or every method of spirituality is going to recognize this. It's just that most people haven't really taken a deep dive into that yet.
Yeah. You've been involved with so many Vegfests. I'm curious, do you have any funny stories you can share about maybe something unusual or funny that happened in one of them? I don't know, maybe a speaker, I don't know, just.
Sure. Well, I could tell you, I'm not sure if it was the one that you were at, AJ, in Bonita Springs, Southwest Florida. One year we had James Aspey at the event. I don't know if you know who he is, but I spent a lot of time with him a few years back, right before he went to the event. I think it was in 2018 is when he showed. I think you were in 2019. I think it's when you were there. So this was a year before you. But yeah, he kind of really shocked people into what he was saying. Because he is an ethical vegan, right? And but I think that we saw a lot of change after he was there, positive change. Sometimes you need the right person to deliver the message to people, and then sometimes there's unintended consequences. I think some people were offended by some of the things that he might have said or showed, but you know what? I saw things take off like never before. After he had been at that event. And some people said, well, you shouldn't ever do this at events. So you kind of, but again, it's the results. The results are what we care about, right? I mean, we're so far off from where we need to be. When we start to see positive results, there's always going to be a little bit of people that don't want to hear the message. But as long as the result is overwhelmingly positive, which it was, then yeah, I mean, that's what we like to see. So I remember that moment. It was that time right after 2018 when he appeared that we saw this massive surge of interest in Southwest Florida. Like I never would have predicted. That was so awesome.
That's fabulous. Well, no Vegfest in the summer anywhere, it seems. So when is your next one and how do people find out about them?
All right. Well, aPlantBasedDiet.org is our website. Just go over, there's a tab there, Vegfest, you can click down on it. We're in DC right now, so we are planning for the Loudon Vegfest, LOUDOUN. So if you go to loudounvegfest.org or just find it on our website, aPlantBasedDiet.org, you'll see that's our next event, and that's in late October. It's basically Loudoun County, which is just a western suburb of Washington D.C. area, and we're preparing for that one as the next one. Then we go to Raleigh, then we go to Naples, Florida. We just hit the road and go down.
Wow, that's amazing. Mona says, is the Savannah Vegfest going to be even larger next year?
Well, we hope so. I can tell you that right now we're having a few scheduling issues with the city. If anyone out there knows somebody in the city of Savannah, we're trying to schedule it the same weekend as St. Patrick's Day. And apparently they don't want to schedule any other events that weekend. So we're having some troubles right now. But yeah, of course, every event, our goal is to make it bigger every single year.
Great. Well, Mike, thank you so much for the work you do. I wish there was a Mike out on this coast doing what you're doing so that there would be more Vegfests out here.
Yeah. Well, I know some people out that way, and but yeah, I can only do so much. We'll see what the future brings.
I know what a tremendous undertaking it is. I've never produced a Vegfest, but even a conference with only a couple hundred people. I mean, how many months you have to work. So thank you.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Well, thank you, AJ, for the work you're doing. Like I said, because 80% of this is the food. And you've got that food area dialed in. So
food's the best part. It's delicious.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely.
Other than following you on your website, are you on social media? Is there a place that can direct people if they're more interested in finding out more?
Yeah, well, the book, we have a Facebook page called Live to 150. You can go ahead and like that. We also have Instagram, and our Instagram is called plantbasedevents.info. plantbasedevents.info. You can follow us on Instagram, and you can also, if you type that in, that URL, plantbasedevents.info, it goes to our calendar on Eventbrite. So you can see all of our events in chronological order because we have an Eventbrite event made for all of them.
Okay, because because there's a few Instagram with plant-based events, but yours has the triangle. It's a triangle and it's a pyramid, right?
That's our logo for the nonprofit. Yes.
Okay, good. Because there's a few with that name. So I'm going to link to that in the show notes.
Awesome. Thank you.
Great. Well, thank you so much. It was nice catching up with you again.
Yeah, same with you.
Absolutely. So we'll see who's the oldest person on record so far to have ever lived or lived recently.
I think, well, once you get really old, it's hard to prove, I think, because they didn't have good records back then, but it's something like in the 120s. So if someone can get to 130, we'll know we're on the way. And I think that will happen because I think, especially with folks from your show, AJ, I think the new blue zones are going to be groupings of people like this, like your followers, AJ, okay? Like people in the intentional communities we're involved with. These types, like actually, we're here in the DC area, Green Fair Organic Cafe, they're customers. I think these are the new blue zones. And if people start to follow what everyone's doing, it's going to take some time. You know, we can't convince people right away. You're going to have to show them the results. And I'm 52. I can't show them the results yet, you know, but I can say that I'm 52 and I feel great, right? I mean, why can't I live to 150? I know the habits. I know what to do. So I'm just going to do it.
Well, I'm 10 years older than you. So if you make it to 150, I'll be 140. No, the other way around. If you make it to
you'll be ahead of me. You'll be 160 after write a new book.
That's amazing. Well, thanks so much, Mike. It was fun catching up with you.
Yeah, same here. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. And thanks all of you for watching another episode of Chef AJ Live. Please come back tomorrow when my guest is